Hello you guys, welcome back to my channel and welcome back to the 4th day in makeup inventory week. I think this ultimately will end up being a week with my mega cut, but I essentially kicked off this series by going through my entire makeup inventory, updating you, doing like a mid-year makeup inventory, comparing my current category numbers to where they were at the beginning of the year. But I have now been going through every single category of makeup and actually like showing you each of the products in my collection. So we kicked it off with foundations, concealers, setting spray, and powder. And then I have also done bronzer and highlight, and today is going to be blush and face palettes. I thought blush was going to be like a 30-minute video in and of itself, but it wasn't quite so long, so I decided to throw my face palettes into the mix as well. Honestly, I love my face palettes most for the blush options, so it feels like a natural place to put this video. Tomorrow, I believe, will be all of my lips, then we'll do eyes, and then I'll do one mega cut where I put all of my makeup inventories together. So if you like to have a long video to fall asleep to or whatever it might be, you can do so. I am prefacing these videos by saying any products that you might know to be in my makeup collection, if you're not seeing them as I display my makeup inventory throughout the video, it is likely because it is a product that I have moved to my declutter bin and am no longer counting in my makeup inventory. However, I have not yet filmed a declutter series. I will likely do that towards the end of the year. But anytime that my friends come over, anytime my sister's over, I do let them shop like my declutter bin. My daughter shops it all the time. So those products are in my mind no longer in my makeup collection. And I wanted a true, accurate representation of where my makeup inventory truly lies, so I know the work that I need to do before the end of the year. So those are all of the housekeeping things that I have for you. If you are interested in seeing both my blush collection and my face palette collection, stay tuned. First, if you have yet to subscribe to my channel and you like hanging out, chit-chatting about makeup inventory, some project panning here and there, palette themed content, that is what I do over on this channel, and I hope you'll consider subscribing before moving on. Also, don't forget to like this video and leave a comment down below, or do anything else the YouTube algorithm loves for you to do. I would really appreciate it. And without further ado, let's get into my blush and face palettes. Okay, moving on to the blush category, we're gonna start with powder blushes, but I did have 67 blushes at the beginning of this year. I do still have 67. I'm very pleased that we haven't gone up, and this is an area I feel like that I'm going to have to declutter before the end of the year. I do feel very overwhelmed by my blush collection, so I think I will eventually do a swatching all of the blushes in my collection and hopefully help me use that, or I will use that as a guide to help me declutter some of these things. But let's jump into all of my powder blushes. Maybe we can start with the 3 from MAC. I count this as a powder blush, even though I think technically it's a cream. It's the Glow Play blush. I have the shade So Natural. I absolutely love this blush. It is one of my favorites in my entire collection. I do love a nudie blush. There is just something so beautiful about a blush that almost just feels like an extension of your bronzer, and that is exactly what this is giving. It gives a beautiful sheeny glow to the skin, and I love that. I also have MAC Warm Soul. This is, I believe, my oldest blush in my collection. Again, it's that nude sort of blush that gives a bit of a glow. Again, kind of just feels like an extension of your bronzer. And then I also have MAC Fairly Precious, which is this really beautiful blush topper. I will say I almost decluttered this at one point in time, and I'm so glad that I didn't, because this type of product is just right up my alley the last couple of years, and I feel like this has gotten a lot of use. In fact, I have looked at potentially picking up a few more of these MAC Extra Dimension blushes because I like a glowy thing on my face, and it just adds a beautiful glow. I do have both Bare Minerals Kiss of Copper and Kiss of Pink. I love both of these. Really beautiful, again, kind of just kissed by the sun sort of blush. Kind of that sunburnt-esque sort of blush. Gives a really beautiful sheen to the skin, and I think those are very beautiful. I also have the Kosas Papaya Duo. So you get a blush and a highlight, but I mostly use this as a blush topper. Really beautiful coral shade. I love this. I actually recently had this pulled out and used this a couple of days and was just loving the way that my makeup looked. I think this is so beautiful. I wish Kosas would bring their duos back. And actually, speaking of Kosas, I have 4 of their new blush formulations. So I have the shade Dreamland, which I had purchased in the full size. And then I thought the trio for the holidays was a really good deal. So I ended up picking up that little trio. I love a mini blush. I will never even go through a mini blush. So we have the shade Euphoria, Butterflies, and Blissed. I have the Ofra Samantha March Chick Lit blush. This is also such a beautiful blush. I like that we get the matte side and the glowy side. I usually just swirl my brush together, and I pulled this out towards the beginning of the year to decide if this was something that I still wanted to keep, and it is. I actually really enjoyed my time reaching for that, so I do still like having that. I have the Makeup by Mario Desert Rose Soft Pop Powder Blush. This is one of my favorite blushes. It's just that perfect kind of your cheeks but better sort of blush for me. It gives this really beautiful rosy flush to the cheeks, a little bit more cool toned, and it's one of those flexible blushes that just kind of matches any look. So I really enjoy that. This blush is pretty like similar in vein. It's the Gucci blush in the shade Rosy Beige. This is something I recently picked up and I have really been enjoying that. The Buxom, we can talk about 2 more favorite blushes. Buxom Seychelles favorite blush, one of my favorite blushes of all time. Again, it's that beautiful nude sort of blush shade. This one is a little bit more cool tone and definitely has a heavy sheen or heavy glow to it. Love this blush. And then I have my Laura Mercier Fresco blush, which is a nudie blush again, but this one is a little bit more warm leaning and does have a beautiful glow that it gives to skin as well. We're gonna stick with glowy blushes. I have the Rare Beauty blush topper in the shade Cheer. I shouldn't say blush topper. I use this as a blush topper. Otherwise it can look really metallic on the cheeks, but topped over top of a blush, I think it's beautiful. I have the NARS blush in the shade Behave. Again, another really pretty nude blush. This one is a matte blush though, so I definitely prefer a sheeny blush. I have the Hourglass Sublime Flush Blush. I love Hourglass's powder products. They give that beautiful sheen to the skin that I really crave, and I think Sublime is a beautiful blush shade. I have the Charlotte Tilbury Pillow Talk Intense. This is a really beautiful one for the winter months. I reach for this more in the winter. I do want to reach for this some in the summer though, because I feel like mixed together, again, you get a really beautiful kind of sheeny finish to the skin. And this could be a really beautiful sort of extension of a bronzer sort of blush too. Can you tell I have a type? Then I have the Berry Juicy blush from Glowish. I like this, but it's definitely not a favorite. And then I have 2 of the What's Up Beauty Chiq, I don't know. I have 2 of these, 2 of their blushes. I have the lightest one, which is the shade 10 Peaceful Pizza, which I do like for a winter time, just slight flush to the cheeks. And then I also have the shade 30 Relaxed Roma. This one is really beautiful. Again, kind of that nudie extension of your bronzer. I have 4 of the Patrick Ta blush duos. I have She's So LA. This was one of my first blush duos, if not my first blush duo. Again, nudie blush. We love her. Then I have the shade Do We Know Her, which is fun for like a coral sunburnt sort of cheek. I have Not Too Much for another nudie blush combo. And then I have She's the Moment for another sunburnt blush situation. All right, then I have Tarte Concept, which is another nudie blush. I'm kind of embarrassed by how many nudie blushes we have. I have the Tower 28 Get Set blush in the shade Long Beach Iced Tea. I actually think I may end up decluttering this one. I do not think this is flattering on my cheeks at all. It's way too matte, and I am just not looking for a matte blush these days. Like, stay far, far away from me. So I do think this is something that will end up getting decluttered. And then I have the YSL Make Me blush in the shade Nude Lavalier. This is a very unique blush to my collection. It's kind of teetering between like a pink and a lavender. Has a beautiful sheen sheeny finish to it, and I just think that one's beautiful. I have the Urban Decay blush in this shade Fleshed Out. This one shows up almost as nothing on the cheeks. It looks more nude maybe on camera, but it does have a bit of peachiness to it. Again, I love love a blush like this. And then I have the RMS Beauty French Rosé blush, which I almost decluttered, and this is another one similar to MAC Fairly Precious that I'm so glad that I did not declutter because I love this. Honestly, on its own or as a blush topper, just adds a really beautiful glow to the cheeks. I have one from Iconic London that I actually recently recluttered into my collection. This is the Kiss by the Sun in the shade So Cheeky. I decluttered this in the past because I thought it was too dark for my cheeks, but actually this you really can sheer out, and it gives, again, the most beautiful extension of your bronzer, sort of blush finish. And this one is quite glowy. I actually have really been enjoying this and reaching for this quite a bit lately. I have two blushes from Lawless. I do really enjoy the Lawless blush formula. So I have the shade Angel Suede, and then I have the shade Indian Summer. I have two of the Nabla Skin Glazings. I love the Nabla Skin Glazings. I use them as both standalone blushes and blush toppers. This was like my first fall in love with like a glowy blush. I absolutely love the shade Truth, which is this one right here. And I do enjoy Independence. I just don't reach for Independence quite as often. Then I have two of the Persona blushes. I have the shade Georgia, which this is a nudie blush, but it has a bit of that peachiness to it. So beautiful, and it does have a bit of a sheeny finish. And then we have Bubble. I never should have painted my nails today. We have the shade Bubble, which is such a beautiful, fun pop of pink for the cheeks. I have the Very Valentino Ida Cheek in, I want to say the name of this. It's not on the back here. I swear it's like Rosa, something Rosa. I don't know, Roma? Anyway, this one is another one that's very unique to my collection. Again, gives a really beautiful sheeny glow to the cheeks and is more lavender and cool in tone. Really enjoy that one. And then the final powder blush I have is this powder blush duo from Give Beauty. Again, can you tell I have a type? It wasn't quite so apparent to me until just now filming this that I have so many nudie blushes, but if I didn't say, this is in the shade Stars Aligned. Those are all of my powder blushes. Okay, and then we have all of my cream blushes here. These ones, I have a lot of repeats. I feel like when I find a cream blush shade that works for me, well, actually I feel like a lot of these were sent to, me. Lawless sent over all of their cream blushes. I have the majority of them still in my collection, not all of them. I have Starburst, which is my favorite of all the shades because I do love a coral peachy blush. I have the shade Angel, which is the shade right here. I have Gumdrop, which is the fun sort of pink shade. Then I have the shade Duchess, which is pretty unique to my collection, as well as the shade Cheeky for a little bit more of like a lavender purple. This is a very recent purchase to me. This is the Vive Sunset Blush Balm in the shade Rosa. I have the RMS Beauty blush in the shade Spell. This is a very nudie blush, but I do actually really enjoy this one. I have the Rose Ink blush in the shade Camellia. Looks like this. I actually do really like Rose Ink cream products. I think they're really good. I have this one from Melt, which I need to reach for more, especially because this one is getting to be quite old in my collection. But I feel like this is like my perfect cream blush for the summer. Beautiful orangey coral with definitely a heavy glow to it, so I do want to reach for that one some more. I have 4 blushes from Merit. I have Persimmon. I have Beverly Hills, which is the one that I have been working diligently on. I have the shade Terracotta for a more nudie blush, which we know clearly I love. And then I also have the shade Fox, which I think is such a fun one for the fall time. I do like the Merit blush formula because it is definitely more sheer and forgiving. It's a really easy formula to work with. I did buy 2 cream blushes from Phytosurgeons this year. So I have the shade Sear, which is a really beautiful kind of brownie red sort of shade. Perfect kind of extension of your bronzer, blush for the summer. And then I have the shade Condensate, which is definitely more of a cool toned blush shade. Pretty unique to my collection. I have really enjoyed these. I have the Kaja Dewy Bar in the shade Cranberry Cooler. This is the only one I have left. These melt really easily, so that's kind of annoying, but Cranberry Cooler I haven't been able to really dupe in my collection, and I like this. It gives a beautiful glow to the skin, so that's why I keep that one around. I have 3 of the Fenty Beauty Cheeks Out cream blushes. I have Petal Poppin', Strawberry Drip. Love Strawberry Drip for a sunburnt blush in the summer. And then I also have Fenty Glow. I have the Bite Beauty liquid blush in the shade Melon Mojito. I'm actually hoping to finish this one this year. I feel like I'm getting pretty close, which will be exciting. And speaking of blushes that I'm hoping to finish this year, I am also hoping to finish the Say Dewy blush in the shade Baby. I can't remember. Yes, I took the stopper out of this one. I haven't reached for this one in a bit just because I'm not really reaching for a blush shade like this, but this is definitely something I want to pull back out and pan in the winter time. And how cool would it be to have 2 blush empties at the end of the year? I also have the shade Rosy in the Say Dewy blush and the shade Chili. I actually really enjoy the Say Dewy blush formula. I think it's really pretty forgiving. Like it can be built up to be pretty pigmented, but you can really sheer it out as well, and it does give just a really beautiful glow to the cheeks. I also have the NYX Sweet Cheeks blush in the shade Nude Tude. Love for a nude blush. I have the Huda Beauty blush filter in the shade Strawberries and Cream. This shade I thought was going to be a little bit more unique to my collection, but it really just is kind of just like a basic pink, which is a bit disappointing. It's a nice formula, but I don't know. I thought I was going to be more blown away by that. And then one of my favorite cream blushes in my entire collection is the Makeup by Mario, whoopsies, Earthy Pink blush stick, which I also really enjoy. And those are all of my cream blushes. Okay, you guys, we're on to my face palettes. Now, face palettes is one of those areas that I feel like, I don't know if I ever track very accurately, because I feel like one month I decide I want to include duos and trios in my face palettes, and then the next month I don't. But for all intents and purposes, we are including my duos, except for blush duos. I've counted with blushes. I know it's all so confusing, but I think there's only 2 products here that are technically duos. I currently have 20 face palettes. I think when I had done my makeup inventory, I said I had 24, but when I have everything laid out in front of me here, I have 20. So that is exciting because we have gone down by 4. There are quite a few face palettes in my collection that I am planning to declutter at the end of the year. So again, you won't be seeing those as we go through my face palettes here, but let's jump into it. So we can start with the brand that made me like really fall in love with face palettes. I love NARS for their face palettes. I know that I feel like every single palette that they launch really ends up looking the same, but I love their cheek products. So the newest that I have to my collection are the Hot Escape Cheek 1, which is this one right here. And I also did get the Hot Escape Cheek 2. I really enjoy both of these. This is the NARS Exposed face palette. I actually went and bought this off of Mercari because I loved the packaging of this one, and it was just one of those things that was like the NARS face palette that got away. So I went on and purchased that. Then I have the All That Glitters face palette right here. This is honestly probably one of my least used of all of my NARS face palettes. NARS All That Glitters and then the NARS Rising Star are probably my 2 least used, although I do really enjoy the Rising Star. These 2 are pretty unique to my collection, but if I were to pick my least used of all my NARS. This one is definitely one that has gotten a lot of love for me. It's my NARS Orgasm on the Beach. I did bring this one with me to Florida this year, and I even used this as a bronzer, which I hadn't yet. And I really liked the kind of red tone in this bronzer because it kind of matched the whole sunburn vibe. This one has gotten a lot of love for me this year. Same thing with the NARS Overlust palette. I would say Overlust is probably my most used out of all of my NARS face palettes. I love the kind of muted tones on the bottom, perfect for every day. And then we have these like creamy highlights on top, which I absolutely love. I've been reaching into this one a ton for like a chest and neck highlight, and I have been loving that for the summer. So this one has definitely gotten a lot of use. I also really do love my Hourglass cheek products. So I have the Ghost Quad here. This was my original like purchase for one of the Hourglass face palettes. I have a really good, I was gonna say really good progress on this one, but honestly I really don't. All 4 of these I think are absolutely stunning. I love my Ghost Quad. And then I did buy the Ambient Unlocked Evil Eye palette last winter, and I really enjoyed this one too. I think that the tones in here are beautiful. I love the 2 options for blush. I love this as a highlight, and I also love the Evil Eye, so that works perfect. And then also from Hourglass, I do have the Ambient Lighting palette. This one it has 3 of the basically finishing powders. I really enjoy the Hourglass finishing powders, so I enjoy having this in my collection as well. Then I have the Natasha Denona Glam Face Palette. When I first bought this, this was like one of my favorite things in my entire collection. This has definitely gone unused, but I need to change that because the 5 eyeshadows down here are like exactly what I'm looking for right now. So I really have no excuse not to be reaching for this. A couple more little, let's do my duos and trios. So I have the Natasha Denona Blush and Glow Duo. I love this. I think this is stunning. I love both the blush and the highlight. I feel like I have a pretty decent dip going on the highlight. I pulled this into a Shop My Stash within the last couple of months, and I remember I literally reached for this a week straight. Like, this was my blush and highlight for a week straight, and prior to that I was like, maybe this is something I could see myself possibly decluttering, and I was like, nope, absolutely not. I do really love having that. I do have the little mini Film Star Bronze and Glow from Charlotte Tilbury. This is something that I do feel like should be on the chopping block. I obviously have used this quite a bit, but I feel like it's one of those items that I'm now holding on to because I have a pan in it. And it's like that panner's mentality in you to like hold on to something and finish it after you have used it enough to, you know, hit pan. But it's not something I'm ever really excited to reach for anymore, so this should go on the chopping block. And then I have my Kaja trio here. I love this. It is just such a basic but great little trio here. You have a cream bronzer, which admittedly I haven't used the cream bronzer that much. However, I do really love this highlight. It's such a beautiful kind of champagne yet slightly pink highlight, and then the blush is just like the perfect nude peachy everyday blush. I love having this, so that is definitely something that I'm not even considering decluttering. Then I have my Dior face palette. Now this is something that I had decluttered, and I ended up recluttering this into my collection. A lot of my decluttered stuff I bring in a makeup bin, either home to my mom's or it sits in a makeup bin, basically like makeup purgatory in my home. And so that's why sometimes we see things that are recluttered, and I'm so glad that I did. My daughter loves this, and in turn she has really made me fall in love with this product. I love this as a blush topper. It is such a beautiful ready pink blush topper. I think it's stunning. I love this highlight for a peach toned highlight, and then there is obviously a pink toned highlight that I can reach for all the time. This is really my least used of all the 4 shades, but I really like, I get a lot of use out of these 3 shades. So very happy that I was able to reclutter that into my collection. I have the newest face palette in my collection is the Vive Dimension face palette. This is what this one looks like. I was making an order on, actually I was on the Vive website because I was considering purchasing the Velvet Sands lip liner again, and this immediately caught my attention because I've just been into face palettes. I like that we have the 2 muted blushes down here. We have this like salmon blush, and then we have this like peachy tan tone blush, and then I love that we have this more like satin shimmery, I don't want to say shimmery, but not matte blush here that gives this really beautiful sunburnt sort of vibe to it. And then we have a highlight here. I have really enjoyed my time with this thus far. I haven't had it for the most amount of time, but I'm really happy that I purchased that. I have the Lunar Beauty Moon Prism palette, which I also really enjoy. I will say the other day I pulled this back out and I almost had to like scrape away the top layer. This is definitely getting older in my collection, but now the blushes are performing just fine again. I love the shade Soleil down here. Such a beautiful glowy blush. And I like just the mix of tones in here. I like that we have a very muted baby, almost pastel pink here. I like that we have these deeper tones. Like we have this like almost like mauve maroon berry, not berry, but like, I don't know. I love the shade Spacey. Gravity is such a beautiful bronzy toned blush. I like that we have a peachy coral sort of blush here, and then just kind of like a mid-toned, very neutral blush here. Love all of the blushes in the Moon Prism. And then some of my oldest face palettes in my collection, but they are not in the works to get decluttered. I have the Lancome highlighting palette. Clearly I have really enjoyed this in my lifetime. I have pan on all 3 shades in here. I will say I think Gilded Gold is my least used shade, just because I don't love a gold highlight, but I have pretty significant pan on Frosted Rose, which is the pink, and a decent pan on Sparkling Peach. This is another one I'd like to pull back out and kind of expand the pan a little bit more on these before the year ends, but it just makes me happy to open something up and see a pan on literally 3 out of 3 shades. Then I have my Laura Geller Baked Gelato Swirl palette. Now this is something that I will say at this moment I'm not planning to declutter, but I could see that changing before the end of the year, just because I feel like this is one of the oldest makeup products in my entire collection. However, I do still really like both the shade Ballerina and Peach Glow, which is why I'm not yet ready to let go of this one. And then finally, I have my Becca Après Ski Glow face palette. This has Rose Quartz, which is my favorite highlight Becca ever did. I do really want to finish this bronzer before the end of the year. That is definitely something that I'm planning to do. After those 2 shades are complete, it's possible that I would end up decluttering this. Although I could also see myself trying to like repurpose this shade. Again, could be like a chest and neck situation. We'll see. Regardless, I would not even consider decluttering this until I finish up Rose Quartz. So that is my final face palette. Those are all of my lovely face palettes. All right, guys, that is going to wrap it up for today's makeup inventory video. I'd love to know in the comments below if you keep track of your inventory. How many blushes do you own? And are you a face palette person? I would love to know. I love face palettes, but I know they're not for everyone. So I would also love to know how many face palettes you have in your collection. Other than that, thank you so much for sticking around to watch today's video and for supporting me and my channel as you guys always do. I love you guys so much, and I'll catch you in my next video. Bye.